This is On the Campaign Trail. Every week, we track key issues, moments, and personalities in the long run up to Election Day. But we want to be clear about the map we use. We know that the democratic project is in great danger, and that shapes how we navigate our way to the May 9 elections. It isn't just elections as usual. On the campaign trail seeks to make sense of the elections. We will try to discern patterns in the election landscape, determine paths to victory, discuss relevant policies, seek useful perspectives, all while keenly aware that the anti-democratic clock is ticking. In 2022, hashtag We Decide. Without neglecting the other basic questions, on the campaign trail, we'll ask how we decide and why we decide. I'm John Nery, and you are on the campaign trail. On May 5, 2020, ABS-CBN, the country's largest TV network, went off the air. And on July 10, 2020, the House of Representatives voted 70 to 11 at the committee level to reject a new legislative franchise for ABS-CBN. President Duterte had imposed a death sentence on the network. The 70 congressmen who voted against a new franchise served as his executioners. This shutting down of the network's TV operations was the worst attack on the media since the Maguindanao massacre of 2009, and the worst attack on press freedom since Marcos declared martial rule in 1972. Press freedom advocates and journalists have called for the public to hold the 70 congressmen to account for their actions. As a social weather station survey showed, the number of voting-age Filipinos who recognize the dangers for the media jumped from a little over half to almost two-thirds soon after the July 10 vote. But if politics is the art of the possible, the political question regarding the 70 congressmen is how? How can a concerned public realistically hold them to account? The 2022 elections present an opportunity for account taking. What realistically can be done? We are joined tonight by three resource persons with unique perspectives on the issue. Let me introduce them. National Union of Journalists of the Philippines Chair, Jonathan De Santos, news editor at philstar.com. Dr. Jean Encinas Franco, a professor of political science at the University of the Philippines, who used to serve as a director in the Senate. Later on, we will be joined by Caloocan 2nd District Representative, Congressman Egay Erice. Welcome, everyone, and good evening. First off, a question for our NUJP chair. Jonathan, why should the 70 congressmen be held to account at the proverbial ballot box?
Okay, last year kasi we more than 300 media practitioners signed this manifesto, recognizing that the elections are a reckoning for democracy, and in a way it's also a referendum on what the past administration has done, and we really have to look at what was lost in this decision to scrap the application for a franchise. Yes, there were more than 4,000 workers laid off, and we lost a big part of our culture, and yung disaster preparedness and also yung calamity response was hampered because of this shutdown. So we have to ask then, kasi Congress, yung members of the House kept insisting that it was the wisdom of Congress to scrap the application. So it's time then, or it's right to ask them, ano nga ba tong wisdom na to? How did it work out? How did it work out for your districts? How did it work out for your constituents? Also, you have to look at it as a question not just of press freedom, which has been under attack in the past 6 years, no. But also we have to look at it as a question of independence for the House or for the individual members of the House who voted or how they voted, no. We've seen interviews in the past of um, these representatives being asked to explain their vote, and a lot of them have answered na parang it was the mood of the moment, or one congressman from Valenzuela said na let's just move forward, let's just parang ganun, let's just leave it at that. Na basically I voted to junk the franchise, no. So these are questions that deserve longer, better explanations from the people who want to represent us. Kasi supposedly they did it in our name, no? So we do want to hold them accountable for that and at least explain na, oh, this is why we did it.
Thank you. Dr. Franco, how different, isn't this just a form of retaliation? This talk of holding people like the congressman who says it's time to move on to account. Is that, in fact, in the best interest of the democratic project?
Yeah, when no, elections are not only supposed to be a space or an event where people have to choose the next set of leaders. It's also a venue in which the people can hold politicians accountable. So if the public generally feels that the 70 legislators who voted against granting ABS-CBN a franchise, then if they feel that these 70 legislators voted against public interest, then the elections would be a good time for them to hold these legislators accountable.
Yeah, I think there's an old saying: elections is a way to throw the rascals out. In a way, it's a natural check and balance,
Yeah.
we
So,
might say. But is it in fact the experience of the Philippines that we hold politicians who have done wrong or who have run afoul of public opinion to account at the voting booth? I mean, do we really punish them, quote unquote, for outrageous behavior? Do we have a history or a track record of doing that?
unfortunately, we don't have a strong track record of that. I mean, we've seen many politicians, for instance, Erap Estrada became, after having served his time in prison and in house arrest, he became the mayor of Manila. Gloria Macapagal Arroyo became a congresswoman. So I think we do have a poor track record of holding politicians accountable when they've wronged the people.
I think there is also, and this one is for both of you. I think that we also have a strain of judicial decision making, where a person who has been charged, for instance, with a crime, uh, when that person is elected, the
The
election is
election
seen
is
as
as
uh, erasing the liability of that person, the doctrine of condonation. Um, do you see that playing a role, Dr. Jean or Jonathan?
hmm.
Jonathan, would you like to?
No, I like freeze ako. No,
Sorry. Well, I think.
sorry,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Sige.
Go ahead, pa.
Yeah. I think in a way it's also symbolic because a lot of I mean politicians say that they've been just framed. The cases that were hurled against them were politically motivated. So when they eventually get to the position again, they try to, just like what Marcos Jr. is doing, they try to say that, or just they try to erase the issue. that was hurled against them before. And also, I think the culture of the legal, I mean, the legal framework in which we say that until they're proven guilty for those who were just charged, no, parang that sort of creates the notion among people na na-charge pa lang naman so hindi pa siya guilty. So
Mhm.
may parang I think it perpetuates the notion na oo nga politically motivated lang yun. So hinihintay yung hatol even if there's so much evidence already. So I think it helps in our poor record, no?
So you might go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry,
Siguro,
medyo
siguro as a
naglalak din yung
counterpoint
connection.
lang, oo nga, from the earlier question, there have been instances, for example, ERAP nga was able to become, was elected as Manila mayor, no? But after a while, the people replaced him, no? So maybe, ganun din, there is a certain point na your popularity or your past, or I guess your past popularity is not enough anymore. Meron namang mga areas where they have been, where uh, people like that have been replaced, no, by other, usually younger officials. But yeah, these are ano lang, these are outliers. Hindi naman sila, it's not the common story. Precisely nga, itong mga ganitong victories make the news kasi nga unusual yung ganong pangyayari. But they do happen.
The most recent and high-profile example that I can think of is Senator Ralph Recto, who was the driving force behind what was that controversial legislation again? Um,
EVAT, I
he
think.
lost.
EVAT,
I'm sorry.
EVAT.
The EVA, that's right. He lost his bid for re-election because of that high-profile role as the shepherd of that law in the Senate. But other than him, it's very difficult to think of examples where a politician who's done wrong, quote unquote, is punished at the polls. I keep going back to this point, Jonathan, because the NUJP, since 2 years ago, has been calling for accountability for the 70 congressmen for reasons that you've already enumerated. What exactly is the NUJP doing? Perhaps in collaboration with other groups to hold these 70 congressmen accountable?
Well, towards the as we go closer to the elections, we are going to launch a campaign to bring press freedom nga, to bring it as an election issue. So in the case of the 70, pwedeng as low key yun as a reminder to the voting public that these are the people who voted against ABS-CBN, against the ABS-CBN franchise. Mostly ganon because we don't really want to dictate on people na you should vote for this person or you shouldn't vote for this person. But we do want to make yung press freedom yun, an election issue. We have been reaching out to yung mga people, to the people who are organizing these debates. We do send in questions at times. So it's mostly ganun pa lang. But kailangan kasi continuing conversation siya na well, we lost ABS-CBN pero this is also what we lost, no? Parang yun nga yung disaster preparedness or yung calamity response. Because kung press freedom lang pag-uusapan natin, it might seem parang self-serving lalo na for us na parang we're a special case or we're a special class. But kasi beyond that, this is what we lost. Kunyari sa Quezon City, for example, it could have been parang lost revenues from the taxes of na mababayaran sana ng ABS-CBN if they had been operating regularly, no? Ganon na yun.
Sa akin dyan, if I may add to
Yes.
to the conversation, I think aside from yung kumbaga napilay tayo in terms of disaster preparedness, I think it is also best to let the people who lost their jobs also speak,
Mhm.
because I think a lot of people will really empathize with them, especially it was at the height of the pandemic. And, loss of job is something very close to every uh, Filipinos life. So I think it's also kasi baka hindi nila masyadong makita, tama ka, yung press freedom, tapos hindi rin nila masyadong o ma ma ma-appreciate yung kung hindi sila masyadong ano sa what you call this, yung disaster preparedness, hindi it does not resonate with them.
Mhm.
Maybe yung loss of jobs would be also another effective strategy.
That's right. I'm really missing our third guest, Congressman Egay Erice of Caloocan. Unfortunately, he has a slight emergency. He told us that he will follow. But uh, I wanted to ask him, for instance, whether in fact press freedom is a campaign issue. I started the show by referring to the SWS survey that showed there was a jump in the appreciation of voting age Filipinos, that the media was facing greater danger under Duterte. And that jump was prompted by the closure of ABS-CBN. So I think many people share that sense, that view, but as Dr. Jean pointed out, it might not necessarily translate into a campaign issue, press freedom. So we would need to bring in the other victims of the
Mhm.
closure and the rejection of the franchise, the 4,000 who've lost their jobs.
Mhm.
Also, I was really struck by this initial finding of Kantar Media that
Mhm.
showed that there might be as many as 6 million people who no longer have access to any kind of television news because ABS-CBN was their only possible source. So when that was cut, I don't have the survey with me right now, but I do remember being in a presentation with Jay Bautista of Qatar Media, and that was the figure that he shared, that there are millions of people, probably about 6 million, who are now quote unquote unused,
Mhm.
have no access to the news. So that would be they would form, another and much larger set of victims. I wanted to ask if we if the strategy, quote unquote, is to target accountability for all 70, perhaps it might not be possible to actually achieve accountability with any of the 70. Meaning to
Mhm.
say, if you try to hit everyone, you'll end up hitting no one.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you agree with that? I mean, Jonathan?
Yes, as a strategy, I would agree. But I really think that each of these members of the House should be asked to explain, ano? Especially if they're seeking re-election. Ano? It might not really, um, parang it might not be the deciding issue, but at least makikita natin sila trying to explain it or at least trying to justify it. Lalo na nga, kasi you have to look at how it affected their constituents. Eh. Hindi ko masasabi for example, which member of Congress ang most susceptible to this, no? So, I think all of them have to be asked that, no? Or kahit nga hindi among the 70, like um, they should be asked to answer. Now, would you support like a new franchise for ABS-CBN? Or where would you parang how would you vote if a similar incident or a similar situation in the future, no? Happens in the future?
Yeah, yeah. My sense is that it's also okay, even if we know that we may not be 100% successful in terms of, you know, taking into, I mean, holding the 70 accountable. I mean, assuming that all of them are running for re-election. But then just to be able to show that there are groups that remember what they did. I think that would also convey the message to future legislators to really think very thoroughly before they actually, decide on very crucial issues that face the country.
Maybe we can explore the idea of uh, a symbolic subset of the 70 uh, as a viable strategy. I was really looking forward to having Kong Egay Erice
Mm.
with us because number one, he's an incumbent congressman. While he did not vote at the committee in the committee 2 years ago, he was very vocal in his support for ABS-CBN.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, another congressman from Caloocan, uh, Dale Malapitan, Along Malapitan, voted against the ABS-CBN franchise. Here you can see on the screen is a list of the 70 congressmen who voted against the franchise renewal. Uh, Back to Congressman Egay, Along Malapitan is now running for mayor of Caloocan. And
Mm.
Egay Erice is also running for mayor of Caloocan. I wanted
Mhm.
to ask you, Dr. Franco, as a political scientist, and then
Mm.
you, Jonathan, as a journalist,
Mm.
how would you view this coming battle royale between two incumbent congressmen now running for mayor of Caloocan? Um, and do you think that in that battle royale, the ABS-CBN franchise is a or will be a campaign issue?
I
Maybe
think
Doc
yes,
Jean?
it can be a campaign issue, especially like for instance, someone who lost his job would
Mhm.
uh, help or speak during sorties or uh, vouch, for instance, for Congressman Elise. I think that would be effective. But then, for the others, we also have to think that, especially for those who are incumbent and then seeking re-election, and those who voted against the ABS-CBN franchise. The thing is, people just do not look at legislators as someone who uh, legislates. No, there's another side to legislators that people expect. It's their role as patrons, purveyor of spoils, and
Mhm.
yeah, and pork barrel and all those things that incumbent politicians can do. So yun yung parang doon papasok yung whether people will appreciate or not, whether they voted or not the granting of for the granting of the franchise to ABS-CBN. So it depends on how they balance it. Diba? It depends how they view ABS-CBN's role in their lives vis-a-vis what they get from this candidate.
Mm.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Parang gano'n nga 'no, actually, kasi it could be a question of, independence. Pero, you'll have to look at whether yung positioning nila, on this and in other, issues, meant kunyari projects for their district or,
Mm.
kumbaga if it paid off for them, no, if it brought home the bacon, sabi nga nila, no. So I really can't say kung nangyari yun sa distrito nila or sa Caloocan mismo. So pero yun nga, it might not be it might not be as compelling an argument lalo na if it's for mayor, no. There might be a lot of other things that voters will take into account, pwede siyang erase, pero baka hindi, ayun, it might not, baka hindi yun yung pinaka-compelling argument. Lalo na kung local chief executive naman din kasi.
Thank you. It's not possible for us to go through down the list, no, of all the 70. So maybe we can just focus on a few. I just want to raise some of the names and maybe ask you to respond. One of the 70 is running for the Senate. That's party list Congressman Rodante Marcoleta. It's part of the Marcos Duterte slate. How can the ABS-CBN issue be raised as a campaign issue against him?
Well, does he even have a chance? Sorry. Given that, you're 12 ang iboboto and medyo masikip. Usually, kahit papaano malaki yung ng incumbent senator. So yun, no? But then I think yeah, especially because the constituency is nationwide, no? Unlike in a legislator or in a congressional district or saan ba yun? Sa local executive, iba yung constituency nationwide. So mas madadala nga, mas madaling dalhin yung issue ng ABS-CBN.
I'm reminded that just last night there was a huge controversy when Tony Gonzaga, who is an ABS-CBN talent, served as host of the Marcos Duterte Proclamation Rally. And one of the things she did was to introduce Marcoleta, who was one of the three main drivers of the ABS-CBN franchise rejection. I guess this goes back to Jonathan's point earlier that journalists must continue to confront Marcoleta in every forum with his role and his responsibility for shutting down of ABS-CBN.
Although,
how about... go ahead, Jonathan.
Although, it's actually a point, parang it seems like a point of pride for him. He has raised that point, no, sa mga caravans that he helped shut down ABS-CBN. In the same way that yung proposal niya to give the CHR a budget of 1,000 pesos for the year, no? It's also raised as it's like a good thing, no? Parang, so definitely, it will be something that people will have to consider if they're going to vote for him, no? Kasi siya na mismo or yung campaign na nila mismo yung nag-raise nito as achievements or as actually positive points for him.
But reflecting on Dr. Franco's earlier point, that Marcoleta is trailing badly in the Senate polls, it will be difficult for anyone to claim his loss as a victory for ABS-CBN and the advocates of press freedom. No? Parang it doesn't equate. No? There's an interesting case that I want to bring to your attention. One of the 70 who voted against ABS-CBN was TUCP party list Congressman Raymond Democrito Mendoza, son of the late great Democrito Mendoza who helped found TUCP. He's based in Cebu, and because of unusual circumstances, is actually serving his 5th consecutive term as party list congressman. Because the first 3 he was facing major electoral challenge, electoral protests. But he is from Cebu, and Cebu has always been has always prided itself on being an outlier, so to speak. So Duterte won big there in 2016 because Duterte was the outsider, but so did Leni Robredo. I wonder how would it be possible to bring this to hold Congressman Mendoza to account in Cebu with his party list TUCP for his role in the ABS-CBN franchise.
Yeah, I think it can very well be an issue, especially Cebu. It's a you know it's a big voting block. It's a voter-rich province, and I'm sure the city, for instance, would be very what do you call this? Much aware of what happened, and I think a lot would be uh, consumers of ABS-CBN shows. So that would really be, I think, somehow a strategy that can be taken.
Yeah, or maybe have someone from Cebu like Kim Chu, uh, uh, campaign against him.
Yeah.
It's we're past the halfway. I mean, we're past 30 minutes, so let me. I have a few more questions, but actually, let me just go to the end. I wanted to talk to you about Janet Garin, for instance, who was Secretary of Health under Noynoy Aquino, but because of the Dengvaxia controversy, decided to reject the ABS-CBN franchise. It will
Mm-hmm.
be, but it will be difficult to unseat her uh, in the same way that it's difficult to unseat the likes of Boying Rimulya of Cavite or Martin Romualdez of Tacloban because they are well entrenched in their
Yes. Yes.
areas. I did some research and it turns out that in 2019, when Janet Garin ran for the first district of Iloilo, she got like six times more votes than her opponent. And
Mm.
now she's running against a former town mayor, Tubungan ex-mayor Victor Tabakiraw. So I don't know if that's a viable candidacy that others can back. But I want to go to the city that Jonathan mentioned at the very start, Quezon City. So
Mm.
ABS-CBN was the largest taxpayer of Quezon City. Was received recognition for that, and certainly with the losses in the last 2 years, pretty sure the tax take from ABS has gone down, has affected Quezon City. But the interesting thing here is that there are three congressmen in Quezon City who played pivotal roles in the rejection of the ABS-CBN franchise. So one of them is not actually reflected as part of the 70, but Mike Defensor played a very important role in shepherding the rejection of the franchise. He's running for mayor against
Mm.
Joy Belmonte. But you also have Precious Castelo, former actress, who is running for her second term. She is the representative of the second district of Quezon City.
Mm.
I think her main opponent in 2022 is the son of Ralph Tulfo.
Mm.
And then you also have Onyx Crisologo, Anthony
Yes.
Peter Onyx Crisologo, congressman of the first district of Quezon City. Like Castelo, he voted against the ABS-CBN franchise. Now, in the first district of Quezon City, Crisologo is facing popular actor Arjo Ataide. And I think there's a businessman, an entrepreneur named Marcos D. So it looks like it's a tight race in the first district of Quezon City. And of course, Mike Defensor running for mayor is running against A. Belmonte. And the Belmontes are well-known powers in Quezon City. Having said all this, no, having laid these premises, it seems. Would you agree with me that Quezon City might be a hotspot, as it were, to demonstrate uh, that the public can hold those who rejected ABS-CBN to account? Um, you have three, and it so happens they belong to the same coalition. It's called the Malayang Quezon City or MQC
Mm.
uh, slate.
Mm.
Defensor running for mayor, and then six congressmen are running for the 6 districts.
Mm.
May I have your thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. I agree that it can be a good, what do you call this, parang social experiment, no? Na dun i-focus yung attention in taking politicians into account with what happened. Mainly because one, Quezon City is the home of ABS-CBN.
That's right.
The protests and rallies, all the things that happened before the cancellation and after the cancellation of the franchise all happened in Quezon City, and it's very much still, I'm sure, in the collective memory of people in Quezon City. And I'm pretty sure some of the workers who lost their jobs are actually from Quezon City. So it's a good place to actually launch that campaign to take them into account. And you know most I think stars or actors and actresses, singers of ABS-CBN are also from Quezon City, so they can in fact very well join this campaign.
Thank you. Um, Marcos D, one of those running in the first district of Quezon City, released the results of a survey. He did not say where the survey came from, just said it was conducted in December 2021. And so he released it, and the findings were, according to his press release, 45% favored Crisologo,
Mhm.
39% favored Arjo Ataide, and 14% favored Marcos D. Now, assuming that the numbers are legitimate, that the survey was scientific, that seems like a very good indication that Crisologo might really be facing a difficult challenge,
Mhm.
especially considering that Ataide is a popular actor who
Mhm.
is uh, um, associated with an even more popular actress named Mendoza, uh,
Mhm.
a star that belongs to GMA. So it would be sweet irony, you know, if someone working with GMA would actually help hold a congressman who shut down ABS-CBN to account. Jonathan and
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Franco, maybe just your final thoughts on this. I wanted to uh, ask you, would you recommend that groups organize to zero in on Quezon City? The official campaign period for local races is
Mhm.
March 25. So
Yes.
there is time,
Yes.
1.5 months for this.
Mhm.
Um, would that would that be some for Jonathan? The question is, would that be something that perhaps NUJP and its allies will consider, like make a stand in Quezon City
Mm-hmm.
to drive home the point, hold the 70 to account? And Dr. Jean, what would be what would be some of the principles that these groups should keep in mind in order to have a successful campaign? Maybe I'll
Well,
start with Jonathan.
yeah, yeah, please.
Okay. Well, um, of course, no. Especially with the shutdown anniversary coming up, and also World Press Freedom Day, no. Parang there really is no other. Parang it's the logical place to take a stand or to raise this issue. So yes, it will be in Quezon City probably at the ABS-CBN compound, no? Or outside. Um, and yeah, I agree na siguro um, a lot of the people affected by the layoffs are from Quezon City or commute to Quezon City. So um, it would make sense for for the campaign to be centered here, no? Lalo na since regional networks have closed down, yung regional stations have closed down, no? So yes, yes, definitely. I wish I could speak more specifically, pero ano,
Oo.
may
Yes,
weird
it's hard.
circumstances.
Oo.
Yes.
Well,
Dr. Jean?
sa akin naman, I think ano 'no, yeah, I think the best, strategy would to form, some sort of a coalition, people who have been affected by the ABS-CBN shutdown, especially the workers, and not only those who work in ABS-CBN, but there are informal workers outside ABS-CBN because I live near the area. That's
Mhm.
why I know. There are informal workers. There are also restaurants who have been affected because I know that
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oo.
very busy area, especially when there are shows, when people line up to watch their favorite programs. So these are people who can speak, who can be the the people who can speak for the coalition. There can be a good, I'm sure, um, a lot of people can think of a good, what do you call this, advocacy tagline or something like that, and engage the help of, actors and actresses who are very popular, because they will draw in the crowds and also make them speak. Probably a good thing to do is to ask, for instance, these actors and actresses to do a blog, for instance, appear with people who are affected, so that people will really get interested in the beginning because this is an actor and actress speaking, but then they will be interviewing someone who lost their jobs, their livelihood because of the shutdown in ABS-CBN. Because I'd like to zero in on the loss of jobs because some people have
Mhm.
actually framed this as a successful shutdown because this is against oligarchy. I don't
Mhm.
remember this is something that has been said a while back by some people. So I think if we zero in on people who really lost their livelihood, and then of course the press freedom issue and the loss of information during the pandemic can also be added.
Thank you, Dr. Jean. Something else that Jonathan said is still ringing in my ears. Um, yes, the anniversary of the shutdown is coming up. That's May 5.
Oh yeah, yeah.
World Press Freedom Day is coming up. That's, if I'm not mistaken, May 3.
Mhm.
This is all in the run up to May 9, election day. So, in a way, the calendar might help the organizers of such a campaign. Um, I would like to thank you for taking time to discuss this subject with me. I apologize for the technical difficulties, which was the main reason why we started late. I also apologize on behalf of Congressman Erice. He was gung ho on this when I talked to him 2 days ago. Unfortunately, he had
Mhm.
uh, an emergency that he had to attend to. Dr. Jean Encinas Franco of the University of the Philippines, and Jonathan De Santos, Chair of the NUJP. Thank you for your time and your insights.
Thank you, thank you,
Maraming salamat.
thank
Thank you.
you. Bye bye, bye bye.
For those of us who wish to hold the 70 congressmen to account, Quezon City, the home of ABS-CBN, is where we should make our stand. Well, that's it for us tonight. Join us again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Follow us on the campaign trail because it isn't just elections as usual. This is John Nery. Good night.